Nancy Reagan described it as the long goodbye, the slow and agonizing loss of one's memory and identity that comes with an Alzheimer's diagnosis. More than 5 million Americans are living with the disease, and now the new production Absence at Boston Playwrights Theater brings that stark statistic into perspective. WGBH's arts editor Jared Bowen saw the show recently and joins us with more.
Hey, well, this is a really fascinating show because it takes you right into the issues of dementia that I think that everybody faces in a very realistic way. Because how you get into this piece, Absence at Boston Playwrights Theater, is you see this woman, Helen, who's in her 70s, and she's having a level of conflict with her adult daughter and her husband. And you can't quite understand why they're being so patronizing to her, why she's having these frustrations, and still until they begin to drop words. And when you first hear it, you think, I think I, sitting in the audience, just misheard this. I don't understand what's going on. And then you suddenly realize that you're experiencing her dementia through her eyes and her gradually diminishing level of comprehension as the way she hears it and sees it. We have a clip of this production. Joanna Merlin plays Helen. David Pace plays her, or Dale Pace rather, plays her husband David. And this is just as, when you see her in this clip, you'll see her start to live in the past and the frustration that she has.
I pushed you to take charge, to step forward, but you don't.
It's not that the rabbits aren't indexing to Volt. You're a strong woman. I've always admired you for that. I've loved you for it. But you have a way of sapping the strength of everyone else around you, whether it's me or Barb.
I haven't. Why are you saying these things?
Well, if you wanted me to argue.
Yes, but sensibly.
You see, nothing I can do can please you. Nothing I've ever done.
So is this autobiographical? Is there a personal touch to this?
This was written by a local playwright, Peter Floyd, and I don't know that it's necessarily autobiographical, but he's done a lot of research, and I think that anybody who has experienced any level of dementia with a family member can understand the exasperation that you see play out here.
So it seems like there's been a lot more theater productions, movies, just entertainment in general that deals with this issue. I mean, it's not amusing, but... Well,
and I went back today to look at some of the pieces because I know I had seen them, films like The Notebook or Iris, starring Judi Dench, The Savages, which starred the late Philip Seymour Hoffman and Laura Linney, and Away From Her, where Julie Christie received an Oscar nomination. And it's interesting that all of these films that have dealt with Alzheimer's and this loss of memory have also really resonated with the public and have been very successful because at the heart of it, they get to relationships because, with dementia and Alzheimer's, you often see people reverting to who they once were. And so there's a deep heart to all of these pieces.
So sad. All right, well, as Jared mentioned, themes of aging and illness are becoming more commonplace in theater and in film. This Sunday, the Living with Alzheimer's Film Project is hosting a special screening of A Place Called Pluto, a documentary about Cape Cod journalist Greg O'Brien, who was diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's.
At first light, I must focus on the 5 W's before tossing the covers. The who, where, what, when, why, and how of life. As if rebooting my faithful MacBook Pro. On doctor's advice, I've begun labeling. I have attempted often to brush my teeth with liquid soap, and on 2 occasions gargled briefly with rubbing alcohol.
All right, well, my next guest has a lot to say about this. Tim Armour, he's the president and CEO of Cure Alzheimer's Fund, which is sponsoring the film project. Welcome to Greater Boston.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you. And I would just add that film series is going to be seen in Falmouth at the Highfield Theater at 11 o'clock this Sunday. So we'd certainly welcome people to come. Now,
so Tim O'Brien, he's still functioning, but he has been officially diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's.
Yes.
Is it more common now that people are getting it earlier?
I think the diagnostics are better. The age at which people discriminated between early onset and regular onset was always sort of arbitrary in the first place. It was 65. And what we're finding now is that the disease starts much, much earlier in one's life, maybe as early as the 20s or 30s, but it's undetectable until it begins to become symptomatic. Now, early Alzheimer's is a much, much smaller percentage of the Alzheimer's population than anything else. It's 1 to 2%. So it's very few people, but it's very profound when it happens.
Is there anything, I know your fund raises money for research and potential cures, but is there anything that Tim O'Brien can do to slow down the progression?
Right now, unfortunately, I think the honest answer is no. there are things that we should all be doing anyway, good physical exercise, learning. It's not so much repetitive mental activity, but learning activity is good to keep those synapses alive and moving in the brain, physical. But in terms of drugs to be taken, the answer is really no right now. It's coming. And there's probably the best news is that within the research community there is a convergence of opinion about how this disease starts and progresses through the brain. And that's pretty new. That's within the last 2 or 3, 4 years. So that's very, very encouraging because it gives us now targets to hit to develop effective
but aren't there
therapies.
Also all different kinds of dementia, Alzheimer's? I mean, it all ends up being sort of the same symptomatically, but there's a lot of different terminology. And
correct. Alzheimer's is the largest form of dementia, and depending on which study you look at, it's 70 to 80% of all of dementia. But you're right, there are a number of other kinds of dementia, some of which are reversible. Like vascular dementia, for example, has a lot to do with the heart and how it pumps to the blood and so on. And if you can fix some of those things, the vascular dementia is at least retarded, if not gone away. Others, like Alzheimer's, Lewy bodies, which you mentioned early, right now, not reversible.
So does the play deal with the eventuality of what happens to this woman?
It does. I mean, that's, again, this is why I think it hits the audience in a very intimate space, too, which I think makes it very impactful. And the audience that I saw it with was very, very emotional. And I think you think of the typical theater audience in Boston, which is older, and so I think it resonated in a lot of ways. But you do follow her trajectory. You see her get more confused. And I think, again, we've all seen this in our families. You can't help but argue with somebody who has dementia because you get frustrated because you don't necessarily understand where they're coming from. But in this play, you see it. It's laid out there for you because you get both perspectives.
And, I mean, I don't want to have you give it away, but, I mean, I'm having a hard time imagining that this is, entertaining in a way.
Well, not all theater is supposed to be entertaining and a high art. I just saw Death of a Salesman this week, which completely demoralizes you with the American condition. But there's another piece of theater that dealt with bipolar disorder. I mean, theater always is a great venue to see yourself in society and the human condition reflected.
Let me say, Emily, to that, my world is dealing with technology, test tubes, laboratories, very high technology, deep research that will, we hope, end this disease. But that's only one dimension of it. Art brings the other dimension, the human spirit, the human soul. And while we don't go out of our way to go to a film or a play about Alzheimer's, if you do, there is really something uplifting, something wonderful about the human spirit and the way it touches the soul that we don't see in the research lab.
All right, well, good luck with your film this weekend.
Thank you.
Tim Moore, Jared, thanks.